So we're taking a few minutes to go through these text-dependent questions. We're looking at the multiple choice. For the first one, our keywords were effect, introduction, and paragraph 1. When you're looking at questions for any test, standardized test, you want to find the keywords to help you choose the best response. So we determined that B was the best response because at first it sounds like an inspirational story, but we realized by the end of that first paragraph that Charles Wentworth is not probably going to be a nice person. Okay. Number 2, you have a part A here. How does the author create irony? So the writer uses irony as part of the humor. So you need to make sure that in your answer choice, you see something ironic. In other words, you see what something is believed to be and then how it is really. So what answer did you guys come up with for this one? Let's go through these together. The author relies mostly on verbal irony. So verbal means you're using dialogue, and dialogue is punctuated with what? Yes, ma'am. Quotation marks, exactly. So we have a few quotation marks in the article, but not really a lot. Using unnatural dialogue to create a false, superficial type of speech. Well, let's look at where we did see some dialogue. Amazingly, Mr. Wentworth did not experience a single repercussion. I mean, that sounds like natural talk. If he had been driving just 5 miles per hour faster, or if his parents hadn't had the influence to keep the matter out of court. Who knows what could have happened? I mean, that seems real. It doesn't seem unnatural. Charles is very lucky to be alive. So I would knock out choice A. The author blames the crash on the family of 4. Did that ever happen in the article? No. In fact, the only mention is that they were in the hospital. So there's no blame, so we can knock that one out. So now we're down to C and D. The author relies on the reader's expectation. Well, this piques my interest because expectation is part of the definition for irony. The author relies on the reader's expectation that the wealthy teen would be the villain of the story and flips these expectations, making him the regretful protagonist. Was he regretful? No. In fact...
Good morning. Sorry for the interruption. If the 11th grade with the last names C and D will now go to the auditorium for pictures. Again, 11th grade with the last names C and D, please go to the auditorium for pictures.
In fact, on the second page of the article, it says 0 remorse, and you guys talked about how last week that meant he didn't feel any guilt. Okay, so that only leaves us one answer choice, which is D. The author relies on the reader's, again, expectations, such as the expectation that a near-fatal car accident would change someone for the better, and flips these to create irony, because he did not change. So D is your best answer choice there. One of the lines that was most humorous to me was the fact that he barely had to put his video game down so he could sign some papers. So next, we have this analysis here. We have to figure out the quote that goes with the analysis. Okay? So which one shows irony? Specifically, that this would change somebody, but it didn't. You okay? Grayson, you all right? Okay. So A, Wentworth, reportedly ignoring the protests of his classmates, got behind the wheel of his turbocharged Supra after consuming half the contents of a bottle of alcohol at a friend's party. Does that show us two different sides of Wentworth? No. So we can knock that one out. Wentworth later said the only thing that got him through the dark time was thinking of his rich, well-connected loved ones. Is there anything about him changing for the better? No. To think that I was that close to seeing that there is an entire society with its own laws and standards outside my protected sphere of wealth and privilege, it's frightening. Does that sound like maybe he's changed? Okay, Caitlin thinks yes. Rachel's not sure. What do you think, Grayson? Does that, if you heard somebody say that, do you think they've changed? Okay, so we have two yeses. I tend to agree with you. If that's all you heard. Then let's look at the second part. It's almost. Makes you consider your actions and their impact on others. Almost. That word almost there. Had he changed? Had Charles changed? It made him almost think about it, but did he? No. The other 4 victims of the crash remain in intensive care. They didn't really talk about the 4 victims that much. So we're going to knock that one out. Okay. So strategies to use as you answer multiple choice questions. Find the focus parts of your questions. Make sure your answer choices match up with whatever they're asking. Use your annotations. All right, number 4. The family of 4 is only mentioned twice in the text. So family of 4 is important here. And then it's going to ask, what is the effect of this narrative's choice? Now, narrative is just a fancy word for a what? Do you know? Do you remember? It's a fancy word for a story. So basically, these writers are telling a story. And last week, you wrote notes. Hold on a second. At the bottom here. About why you think that's only mentioned twice. So wrong question. This minimizes the blame placed on the family, emphasizing the blame on the wealthy teen. Is blame even a part of this? No. This is designed to mimic a real news story in which the victims are less likely to be discussed in depth to protect them. Well, you think about news stories, whether you get it through social media or you watch TV, who do they usually focus on? If there's a crash or a shooting, who do they often focus on? The victim or the person who did it? What?
The person who did it.
Well, they focus on the person who did it. Who else do they focus on? So think about recent events with shootings. Do they focus on the person who was shot also? Yeah, I mean, I can think of several cases right now where people are protesting because of what happened to the victims. So I don't think that's true. We expected to see more about the victims because that's the way our news is set up today, but we don't have that. This reflects the family's power over the situation. Now, when they say family, they're talking about that family of 4. Does the family of 4 have any power in this story? Caitlin's saying no, you're correct. There is no power. So it's not talking about Charles's family, it's talking about the family of 4. This reflects society's ignorance or lack of caring towards poor people, giving our attention to the rich. Well, that's exactly what you talked about last week, that the article really emphasizes the importance or value of the rich and how the poor aren't really considered. So D is your best response there. Okay. Throughout the semester, we'll continue to practice these strategies. Again, this first one is a model for you. So make sure that you work through these answer choices. So the next thing that we're going to work on is what's called a constructed response. You will have at least 4 of these. If they are field testing some items, you might have 5 on your EOC. They are meant to be 1 paragraph. So we're going to practice all semester writing good 1 paragraph responses. And if it would help if I could spell paragraph correctly, wouldn't it? So that'll be the next thing that we work on.